All right, we are live. What if I told you that today, May the 8th, 2026, the United States government released some UFO files? That is what we're going to be digging in tonight. Some of these UFO files, what did they release? How significant are they? Do they have any real insight? Are they showing real UFOs? What is it that they're showing us and why? And then we're going to take some time to go back in the time machine to one of the original disclosure moments. We are going to watch one of the original and one of the greatest disclosure moments in modern history that happened in 2001. It aired in the middle of the day on CNN while everybody was at work, completely distracted. An incredible disclosure event with people coming forth to testify that had high-level positions in aerospace, astrophysics, nuclear physics, and what they call nuclear site or silo security. It's going to be a great talk tonight. All right. So please, if you're coming on right now, make sure that you click that like button, and please make sure that you share the video. I see the live chat filling up. Stay Kinetic, Botanica, Ken, Joe, Spinby. All right. Coritha or Corthea. Everyone, I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for hopping in here. We're going to go into this UFO stuff tonight. These files that were just recently released by the government. Let's take a look at it and just see what they have. But we're also going to talk about them a little bit and then move into something that really, for me, shook me at my core all the way back in 2001. Really amazing stuff. Really amazing stuff. I mean, 2001, just think about that. You know, we're talking about technically 25 years ago. 25 years ago, we had one of the greatest disclosure events, and hardly anyone knows about it. So tonight we're going to spend some time. This isn't going to be a quick 45-minute talk tonight because we're going to actually play some video. We're going to play some footage, and we're going to hear from some people, not just any people. We're going to hear from people that actually have or had at the time the codes to arm nuclear missiles. We're going to hear from the people that actually worked at what they call flights. And what is a flight? A flight is a location out in the middle of nowhere that is guarded by secure airspace and military perimeter, miles out where they have the nuclear silos, where you have the intercontinental ballistics underground. We're going to hear from people that are military security. We're going to hear from people high ranking. One of the hardest jobs to get in the world has got to be the person that has the codes to the nukes. That's probably one of the toughest jobs. Like when you apply for that job, you're saying, yes, I would like to apply for this job to arm nukes. So when that person gets up to speak, we got to really listen. We have to listen. So, but first, we will dig into this new content or this new stuff that just came out. We'll take a little peep at it. I'll give you my ideas about what I see there. All right. But then we're going to go a little deeper. We're going to go back in time. We're going to hop into the 4BK time machine. We're going to go back in time and check it all out. All right. So thank y'all for hopping on. I appreciate y'all. Please, again, click the like button. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed. All right. And before I get started, we just had our first Belrose Capital Inc. mandatory shareholder update and webinar just before I got on here. If you are a 4BK or forbidden knowledge investor, and you bought shares when we were selling shares as a privately owned company, now we're public, and you missed the email or the text message, then I'm going to drop a link for you right now so that you can actually go back and rewatch the recorded meeting. Okay. We knocked it out of the way in the beginning while people are still kind of getting in here. All right. Let me find this broadcast for you. While we're loading people up, please make sure you share the video and be prepared to be around for a while tonight because it's going to be a good minute. This isn't going to be a quick one. All right. But if you don't know, Belrose Capital Inc. is now the owner of Forbidden Knowledge Inc. Forbidden Knowledge was acquired by Belrose Capital, and then I became the president of Belrose Capital, owning roughly 70% of the shares. So I own Belrose Capital, which now owns Forbidden Knowledge. So I did an acquisition of Forbidden Knowledge into a publicly traded company, and then I took over the publicly traded company. So we're still the 4BK family. Okay? That's a big power move. If just in case you didn't know. Just in case you didn't know, that's a power move right there. That's a big power move. That's a big boy move. All right. Every now and then you got to pat yourself on the back. So I'm dropping a link right now for those of you who are investors. We have 6,000 investors in Forbidden Knowledge before we went public. And so I'm dropping the link to the meeting first. Get that out the way right now. Okay. The link is going to go in the live chat. Boom. I just dropped the link. And yes, Forbidden Knowledge is publicly traded. And the ticker is capital BELR. B as in boy, E as in everybody, L as in Larry, R as in Robert, BELR. You'll be hearing me call that ticker symbol out a lot more going forward. Okay. All right. We got that out of the way. I dropped a link in the live chat. Anybody who is an investor and you want to get updates and information, go watch that video. And thank you so much for being part of the journey here. Okay. So let's get into it. We know that the Whitehouse had claimed that they were going to release some of the UFO files, right? And so this was maybe now going back, technically, I believe about maybe 3 or 4 months. It was right around the same time that this unwanted war began in the Middle East, and everybody was already in an uproar about the Epstein files. And then we got this unwanted war. And then it was like, I know, let's give them something. Let's give them the aliens. So they said, let's give them a little sprinkle the aliens on them. There's a little bit of the aliens. Maybe I'll shut them up, right? So let's see what they got. So far, they've given us a few things, and let's just analyze this. I'm going to play it back a few. This object's moving pretty fast there through this wind farm. Seems that these objects captured. Right? Here's another Iraq. Looks like a movie star almost across the border. Across the top of that, moving at some high speed. Let's watch it one more time. I'm just curious. This object seems to be hovering. All they are. That estimated weight. I'll have to admit, some of these are kind of strange, but it could be even got but then again, we don't know if it's ours or alien, or it could be an alien reproduction vehicle. So let's take a look. Let's take a, a stab at what these things could be. On one hand, could they be alien in nature? In other words, otherworldly? Potentially, they could be out of this world. It's possible. It's not impossible. Nothing's impossible, right? So it's possible. Um, at the look of the one that was flying through Iraq, that really did interest me. Although it almost looked like an advanced type of a probe or some type of a super advanced high tech drone that could have been scanning the area to gather intelligence, being that low. The one that was up in the sky moving around, it's possible. It's possible. I think maybe out of those that small clipping, there could be maybe one that may be alien. The others potentially could just be ARVs, alien reproduction vehicles, or technology that we have reverse engineered or created ourselves and have been testing. Um, a lot of the stuff we see in the sky is stuff that we've done ourselves. And it doesn't mean that aliens aren't real. It doesn't mean that they don't have UFOs. I believe we are being visited, but I think we're getting visited by a varying array of things. We have potential things coming up out of the oceans, which could be their actual home. We have various objects, I believe, that are coming from space. And then I believe we have objects coming from multidimensional entities or beings. And then on top of that, we have our own technologies here on Earth that we have been creating and developing, which kind of mimic those, the ones I just mentioned. So there could be this complete conglomerate, this whole combination of various different things happening all at once. I don't think we can just say it's only this or it's only that. I think we have to be more objective and begin to realize it could be many things happening simultaneously, which is why we just can't put our finger on it, right? Um, Multidimensional beings. If you're living in a higher dimension and dimensions are stacked, we know that dimensions are stacked directly on top of one another. They're not like far away. The only distance that a dimension has from one dimension is the vibration. The vibration is what keeps the third dimension from shifting into the fourth, and what keeps the fourth from shifting into the fifth, and so forth and so on. But dimensions are compactified, and yes, that is a real word. They're compactified, and they're up at a 90-degree angle to the next dimension, and they're less than a Planck length distance away from one another. That's how tight and compactified the dimensions are. And so in these dimensions, just as Michio Kaku, theoretical physicist Michio Kaku, and several other mainstream scientists stated, there could be a life in those other dimensions. And since life is rich, life permeates everything, I believe you'll find life everywhere, even in space. And so in those other dimensions, imagine if there is a being or beings that have realized that they are also living in a multidimensional universe. And they then begin to realize, just like we can find out that we're in the third dimension, they begin to realize they're in the fifth or the sixth dimension. And they start to go, wow, what's beneath us? Well, we know in the third dimension, beneath us is the first dimension, a line. If I draw a line on a piece of paper, that flat line is one dimension. If I connect lines on a piece of paper, I now create a two-dimensional object. Both of those objects, the line and the two-dimensional connected lines, I can manipulate those because I'm in the third dimension, right? I can draw on them and I can make changes and I can erase and everything else. If I draw a house, I can see inside of all the rooms. Why? Because I'm in a higher dimension. Now imagine a being or entity in the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. They can see the past, present, and future all at once because they're higher than the third. And then when they come to the realization that they're in a higher dimension and they develop enough, either spiritually or technologically or maybe both, whatever it takes, to find out and discover the exact specific subatomic frequency of the third dimension and say, we want to take a visit to the third dimension and just kind of take a peek in there and see what's going on. And they find a way to shift their frequency and vibration from the sixth dimension and shift it down into a three-dimensional vibration and enter into our realm. This could be paranormal activity, ghosts, all these kind of freaky, crazy things that are going on that we just can't explain, energies and so forth. It could even be some of the UFO sightings. And how would that be? Okay, how can I explain this the easiest way? Let me take this piece of paper. I know this is going to be hard to understand. I take this paper and I draw a line on it. And it's hard to see that line. It's one dimension. Now let's say that people live in this line, flat people. One-dimensional flat people live inside of this line. This is their universe. If I took my finger and put my finger on the line, how would they now perceive my finger? Being that they are one-dimensional beings in a flat world, living on a flat line, they would perceive my finger as a circle. The imprint of my finger pushing on this paper will create a circle, a flat circle. So in their reality, all of a sudden, they would be like, a flat circle just appeared out of nowhere. What is this? Is it a UFO? Yeah, it's a UFO, because I can then take my finger and I can move it around the line, up and down. And I'm now breaking the laws of gravity. I'm moving 2,000 miles an hour. From their perspective, this disc is flying all around in my world. And how is it doing? How is it turning? How is it making these moves? How is it doing that so fast? This disc, this flat circle is just moving around. But at the end of the day, all they are perceiving is the tip of my finger, the imprint of the tip of my finger, which in their world appears as a flat disc. You see what I'm saying? Could a higher dimensional being be coming in and taking a look around with whatever object it is that is imprinting into the third dimension? And because we're immersed in the third dimension, we can only perceive a sliver of their reality. So we only see a fractal of what really is there, not seeing the bigger connection, not seeing that a finger is connected to a hand, connected to an arm, connected to a neck and a body, or a ship, or whatever it is that they're using. And then we go, whoa, what is this? Now, if you scale that up to the second dimension, I draw a house. I draw rooms in the house. I can see inside of every room in that house because I'm a third dimensional being. I can draw a picture of Sally in the house, in the front yard, and even in the backyard. And I can see Sally in 3 different versions of Sally. I can draw an older Sally, a teenage Sally, and a little tiny girl playing with her mom. And I can see and envision Sally from 3 different age groups in the same structure. I can see the past, present, and future all at once in the second dimension because I'm a third dimensional being. Imagine a higher dimensional being. Again, they would be able to see me in my house right now, sitting in this room, but they will see another version of me in my kitchen getting a cup of coffee, another version of me upstairs in my bedroom, another version of me in the family room. They would see it simultaneously. Also, if they decided to interact in the realm that I'm inhabiting, the third dimension, I might not be able to perceive the true essence of what they actually are. And now I'm saying ghosts, demons, paranormal activity, and all this other stuff. Just follow me. These are thought experiments based on physics. Right? So we have the multidimensionals. Then we have third dimensionals. In other words, we have real three-dimensional beings that are all around. Planets, moons. I believe even some of them live in space. I don't know if you've ever seen the tether incident, but that's an amazing video where they were releasing a 4-mile-long tether into space, and it detached. They lost it. It detached, and it spread out. Let me see if I can find it. And what happened was incredible because the camera system they had was in multi-spectrum mode. Okay? The multi-spectrum mode. And in multi-spectrum, they were picking up these massive discs flying around the doggone tether. Now, because the tether is a certain size, they were able to measure the size of some of these objects. Some of them were larger than football fields. And I'm going to share my screen now and pull a video in of the tether incident. Happened a very long time ago, 1996.
And
this view showing
swarming. They're all like kind of stopping as they're talking about it because I think they're like, what is happening?
They're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Those are objects swarming a 4-mile-long tether.
That's a tether released from the shuttle.
Again, just moving into sunrise.
And it's supposed to be
It's
like
miles long.
Extremely long, which would make
12.2 miles long. I'm sorry, I was off by a few miles.
What are those things moving?
That's what we're talking about.
They don't know what any of that stuff is?
No, okay, later they say they think it's debris.
It's not debris.
But the problem is sometimes
they're moving in different directions. They're stopping, they're changing direction.
and sometimes they move behind the tether.
Yeah.
It looks like what you would see in a bloodstream of a human being.
Yeah, doesn't it? Looks like an ether, like a liquid out there. I'm telling you guys, space is different.
But look at the shape of
Okay, so let me pause this.
or at least out the
And
same
it seems to be
direction.
moving
Hold on a
incredibly
second.
fast.
Yeah.
But
Find
some
it.
are slow and some stop.
Yeah, some stop and then change
But
direction.
you said that thing's miles long?
Yeah.
So some of these things.
So that's a quick look at the tether incident, which happened quite some time ago. I remember when it first happened in 96. I was in my 20s. It was about maybe I was 27 at the time or something like that. But it was amazing, right? It was amazing. And those objects that were moving, those discs that were moving around and checking out this tether, they can only be seen in multi-spectrum on the cameras. When they switched the cameras back to normal mode, they disappeared. They didn't even exist anymore. Again, in my personal opinion, those aren't UFOs. I believe that those are living things in the third dimension in space. Another thing is the ISS, the International Space Station. They were taking a look at these outcropping growths on the outside of the actual space station, and they looked extremely similar to barnacles that grow on the outside of boats at a dock, and the same ones that grow on like whales in the ocean. Like living things growing on the outside of the ISS. Interesting. And I also believe that there could be beings throughout the entire known third dimensional universe, and some could be visiting us. So we have the multidimensionals, we have the third dimensionals coming from outside of Earth's atmosphere and visiting. And then we have the underwater beings, I believe, that actually exist. And Congressman Tim Burchett confirmed this just the other day in an official interview. He said that they've been underwater for a very long time. 1492, Christopher Columbus writes in his captain's log. And captains don't write things in their log for fun, because the log is going to be handed over to the queen and the king. He writes in his captain's log that a huge object glowing bright as the sun came up out of the ocean at night and lit up the entire sky and went up into space. Interesting. I think that they've been here for a very long time. And then we might even have some people that live in the inner Earth area, not a hollow Earth, but the Earth is so massive that it has caverns that go on that are so vast. In some of them, you can fit millions of people. Like, I believe, the ones that are still living in that hole in Antarctica. Major Ed Dames, rest his soul, he just passed away. He told me that they live there, they meaning these advanced beings. And he said they come and go as they please, and no nation of the world can stop them. His exact quote to me. And then we have us, human beings. We're also aliens. Our circadian rhythm doesn't even match Earth's rotation on its axis. The astrophysics books have recently been changed, as astronomers and astrophysics have found that we are absorbing another galaxy called the Sagittarius Dwarf Galaxy. And exactly where that galaxy intersects with the Milky Way is right where we're located, at the absorption point. And now they are saying that even our own solar system doesn't come from the Milky Way galaxy. We were planted here by an absorption of the Sagittarius Dwarf, a merger of it into the Milky Way galaxy. So we ourselves are also aliens. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on. What I do believe, though, is that there are still three-dimensional beings that have been coming here and visiting and engaging mankind for millennia, maybe hundreds of thousands of years, according to the ancient text. And I believe that they have the ones that came here and really enslaved mankind at the end of that last Pyramid War. It seems as if most of them left. And this became an abandoned seed colony. Earth is an abandoned seed colony. And that whoever the powers that be who are watching and sitting and watching, the watchers who are watching us right now and observing, waiting for us to grow up, I personally believe that they sent us a message during the nuclear age. During the nuclear age, I believe that they sent us a message. The message was, we're not going to allow you to destroy this planet. We're not going to allow you to pop a nuke. Once the testing began, and America did 1,083 nuclear tests on Earth. I don't know if you knew that. Let me say that again. America did 1,083 nuclear tests on Earth. America, the United States of America. The United States of America went down to the South Pacific, to the Atoll Islands, and took indigenous tribes off their island and moved them to another location so they can blow nukes up off the shoreline and watch and see what would happen. America did that. Of course, you know, we already dropped 2 bombs on people, on civilizations here on Earth. I'm just saying, sometimes we attacking countries and blaming them for doing things that we ourselves done, and those countries ain't did nothing yet. They're watching us. The Anunnaki, known as the Watchers, are watching us. And they're waiting to see what's going to happen next. Are we going to grow up? Are we going to grow the hell up? They sent us a powerful message in the beginning of the turn of the millennia in 2001. And it's like we swept it under the rug. And here we are now, 25 years later, and we're still flaunting nuclear arsenals and making statements like we're going to destroy civilizations utilizing those same nuclear arsenals. Something's got to give. We've got to advance beyond this caveman mentality. We have to advance beyond being slightly and barely above animals. Matter of fact, animals, I believe, in most cases are actually higher than us. I mean, dolphins, killer whales, orcas, they're 10,000 elephants. They're 10,000 times smarter than us. We just need to be lucky that they don't have these fingers and hands to manipulate the environment. This is the only thing that stops them from probably deposing us and putting us in our place. If it wasn't for the fact that they had fins and hooves, they would take over this planet and treat it right. And that's an absolute fact. So let me go into this disclosure footage. Now, this is going to be an event that was hosted by Dr. Stephen Greer 25 years ago. He put together an unbelievable team of whistleblowers, high-ranking whistleblowers, at the press club in Washington, D.C., which I've been at. 2 years ago, I was there in person at a live press club, live on TV. I got to stand up and ask a question as a journalist. And this aired on TV in the middle of the day, and everyone forgot about it. If you've seen this, it's time to rewatch. If you haven't seen it, let's pay close attention, because this is revolutionary information. This is more powerful. What I'm about to show you right now is 10,000 times more powerful than these crappy, foggy clips that they gave us to watch today, talking about we're going to release the alien files. What I'm about to show you now is 10,000 times better.
Years ago, the great screen actor Jimmy Cagney was working with a young actress that was about to be fired. He went to the director and said, "Let me talk to her." And he walked over to the actress and he said, "Look, it's simple. You walk in the room, you plant your feet, look me in the eye, and tell the truth." The logo of the X-Files is "The truth is out there." The truth is out there. I'm going to paraphrase. The truth is in here. You're about to hear the truth.
The reason we are coming forward now is that we are asking for the U.S. Congress and for President Bush to move towards an official inquiry and disclosure on this subject. It has the most profound implications for the human future, for the U.S. national security, and for world peace. Specifically, technologies connected to UFO and extraterrestrial vehicles, if declassified and used for peaceful energy generation and propulsion, would solve the looming energy crisis definitively, would end global warming, would correct the environmental challenges that the Earth is facing. It is also critical that we begin to debate as a society the propriety of placing weapons in space. If indeed, as we can prove, it is true that we are not alone and that space is territory which we are sharing with other civilizations, it could be a very imprudent, destabilizing thing to place weapons in space. This is not being debated because it is off the national and international radar screens. It needs to be placed on it, and we are here today to do it. We can establish through this testimony that these objects of extraterrestrial origin have been tracked on radar going thousands of miles per hour, stopping and making right-hand turns, that they use anti-gravity propulsion systems, which we have already figured out how they work in classified projects in the United States, Great Britain, and elsewhere. That these objects have landed on terra firma, at times have been disabled, and have been retrieved specifically by teams within the United States, that extraterrestrial life forms have been retrieved, and their vehicles have been taken and studied thoroughly for at least 50 years. We can prove through the testimony and documents that we will be presenting that this subject has been hidden from members of Congress and at least 2 administrations that we are aware of, presidential administrations, and that the Constitution of the United States has been subverted by the growing power of these classified projects, and that this is a danger to the national security. There is no evidence, I wish to emphasize, that these life forms from elsewhere are hostile towards us. But there is a great deal of evidence that they are concerned with our hostility. There are times when they have neutralized or rendered inert the launch capabilities of intercontinental ballistic missiles. Witnesses here today will describe those events to you. They have shown clearly that they do not want us to weaponize space, and yet we are proceeding down that dangerous path. And it will be established that these projects, because they have not been supervised properly by the Congress, by the U.S. President, by the international community, have become a threat to the national security. And for this reason, we feel we must disclose the facts. This is the beginning of the campaign for disclosure. And in a memo that I wrote to President Bush last week, I've stated that this campaign will persist until our goals are met, and they are as follows. That we have open, honest hearings on the subject in the U.S. Congress. That there be a permanent ban on the weaponization of space or the targeting of any objects of extraterrestrial origin. That there be a full and complete study of classified technologies connected to this subject to see how they could be properly declassified and applied for peaceful energy generation so that the world may get off of fossil fuels in enough time to prevent greater ecosystem damage or war over the looming energy crisis, which is sure to sweep the earth in the coming decade. This is a matter of the most pressing import. It has been ridiculed, yes. I know many in the media would like to talk about little green men. But in reality, the subject is laughed at because it is so serious. I have had grown men weep who are in the Pentagon, who are members of Congress, and who have said to me, what are we going to do? Here's what we will do. We will see that this matter is properly disclosed, and these courageous witnesses, the first 21 of over 100 that we have already interviewed on videotape, have stepped forward to speak the truth. Now, I expect people to be skeptical, but not irrationally so, because these men and women have come forward and they have their credentials, they can establish who they are, and they have been first-hand witnesses to some of the most important events in the history of the human race. As was pointed out to me by some of the men here, they were charged with handling the nuclear weapons of the United States. Their word was trusted on everything of great importance for the national security. We must trust their word now. As Monsignor Balducci said at the Vatican, in an interview I had with him recently, it is irrational not to accept the testimony of these witnesses. So please be skeptical, but that is not the same as prejudiced and closed-minded. This is a matter of great importance, and I ask the media, the scientific community, and the political community to look seriously at this matter and to do the right thing for humanity and for our children. We have available for the media and for members of Congress a nearly 500-page briefing document with transcripts from dozens of these top-secret witnesses. We have a 4-hour videotape summary. It's not a commercial product, I'll warn you, from this project of the 120 hours that we have in interviews so far. They've been boiled down to 4 hours, and it's available for the Congress to review and for the major media to review. We can establish that this subject is real and has tremendous significance for the human future. I ask on all of you who are listening to contact the members of Congress that represent you and the leaders around the world and other countries and ask them to hold an honest inquiry into this subject, to support a ban on weaponizing space, since we are sharing space with other life forms, and that we move quickly as a people to understanding that this is the end of the childhood of the human race. It is time for us to become mature adults in the cosmic civilizations out there. To do this, we must become a peaceful civilization, and we must look as we go into space with an intent of cooperating with other civilizations, not weaponizing that high frontier. The men and women who will speak next will do so in order, beginning on your left. They will introduce themselves. I ask for the media to refrain from questions until each witness has spoken briefly about who they are and what they have personally been involved with or witnessed in their government, military, or government-connected careers. At the end, we will have questions. All of you may ask questions for as long as we can stay here, and we will provide you with all the information that you need. So we will begin now with the first of our witnesses, Mr. John Callahan.
My name is John Callahan. I'm a retired FAA employee. I was the division manager for the Accidents Evaluation and Investigation Division in DC. About 2 years before I retired, I received a call from Alaska region where the region wanted to know what to tell the media. When I questioned, tell the media what, he says about the UFO, and it went downhill from there. What UFO? It turned out I told him what any government employee would do at that time was to tell him it's under investigation. And then I had him send all that data to the FAA's tech center in Atlantic City. The next day, my immediate boss, service director, Harvey Safir, and I went to Atlantic City. I had just purchased a new video camera, and I videoed the event. And in Atlantic City, we had them play back on a scope, you would call it a scope, a plan view display, PVD, exactly what the pilot seen or what the controller seen, and we tied that in with the voice tape so we could hear exactly what the controller said and what he heard, and we taped it. We came back the next day, briefed the administrator, Admiral Ingen, on what happened. He wanted a 5-minute briefing. After we started the briefing, he wanted to know if he could see the video. We put the video on. He watched the video, the whole video. The next day, he set up a meeting for me to give a dog and pony show to President Reagan's scientific staff and whoever they brought over, and to hand off all that data to them. That morning in the FAA round room, It was either 9 or 10 o'clock. 3 men from Reagan's scientific staff, 3 CIA people, 3 FBI people, and I don't remember who the other guys were, along with all the FAA experts that I brought with me that could decide or talk about the hardware and the software, how it worked. We put on a dog and pony show. We let them watch the video. We had all the data there. We had all the printouts that the computer put out. They got all excited over it. When it was all done, the CIA, one of the CIA men told the people they were now sworn to secrecy, that this meeting never happened and this event never happened. When I asked him why, I thought it was probably just a stealth bomber at the time. He says, well, this is the first time that we have recorded radar data on a UFO, and these guys are going to get all excited, drooling over all this data. I said, well, you're going to tell the public about it? And he says, no, we don't tell the public about this. It would panic the public. He says, we're going to go back and study this. I said, okay. It was what he was going to do. Now, I've told this story many times, and I get sometimes funny looks from people. I have with me the voice tapes of the controllers that were involved, the FAA original tapes. See, after we handed this stuff off to the president's staff, the FAA didn't know what to do with it. We don't separate UFOs from real traffic, so it's not our problem, okay? I have a copy of the original of the video that we took, which is rather interesting. And once the thing was all over, the reports started coming into my office, but because it wasn't an FAA air traffic problem, the FAA's report ended up on a table in my office. And it stayed there until I retired, when one of the staffers packed up all my gear and helped it move to my house. Also, in a box I found just a few days ago, in my 1992 tax return, I have the target printouts from the computer data, which, so if you wanted to or look at every target that was up there at the time, you can now reproduce this from this piece of paper here. And it's called the UFO incident, Japan 1648, I believe the number was, that happened on November the 18th, 1986. I'm prepared to go to Congress, to swear before Congress that everything I've told you people and everything that is here is the truth. Thank you.
Good morning. I hope you'll pardon me. I'm a little bit nervous. My name is Charles L. Brown. I'm a Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Air Force, retired, subsequently 7 years with the Foreign Service. I like the name Charlie Brown. A gentleman by the name of Charles Schultz, of great talent, sort of elevated the name, if you will. During World War II, I was a young farm boy from West Virginia. I got the patriotic bug, joined the United States Army, ended up flying bombers in Europe, and ended the war transport in the Pacific. Finished college in the summer, late summer of '49, recalled to active duty in the newly formed United States Air Force. I was assigned to an organization called Office of Special Investigations. The Air Force, as most of you know, was formed in 1947. OSI, as a central investigative agency for the Air Force, was formed, I think, in 1948. So everything was relatively new. Needless to say, starting in '47, UFOs were rather new. The Air Force Intelligence, or Air Technical Intelligence Center was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and I had my office in a building adjacent to it. And our organization was the worldwide investigative agency for the Air Force for any unidentified flying objects. This lasted for about 2 years. The project name was known as Project Grudge. It was a predecessor to a project known as Blue Book, which Ed Ruppelt headed. During my experience with it, I would collect the data from, I didn't collect it, it was sent into my office. I analyzed it. As a pilot investigator, I was able to offer some bits of advice to the Air Technical Intelligence people. Now, you might visualize a massive office, but as I recall, we had a first lieutenant, a secretary, and a technical sergeant. That was the essence of Project Blue Book when it started, or Project Grudge, Blue Book, and expanded somewhat. During the review as an analyst of these various documentary reports, if you will, or documents, I became clearly convinced that there was substance to what was being reported, in that we had ground visual, ground radar, airborne visual, and airborne radar confirmation of some of these sightings. The individuals who made the sightings were everything from airline pilots, military pilots, police officers, some of the people that your lives depend upon on a daily basis. These are very reputable and credible people. I hope that the testimony here from very credible people will convince you of that and will further Steve Greer's disclosure project, in that pressure needs to be brought to bring this to the attention not only of the Americans, but of people all over the planet. These vehicles have been seen and confirmed all over the planet. I am willing to sign a sworn statement or testify to my judgment and to what I have observed. Such things do exist. Please believe me. Please believe those who follow me. Thank you.
My name is Michael Smith. I was in the Air Force, a sergeant from 1967 to 1973. I was aircraft control and warning operator. While I was assigned to Klamath Falls, Oregon, in early 1970, I arrived at the radar site and they were watching a UFO on a radar that was hovering at about 80,000 feet. It sat there for about 10 minutes and then slowly descended until it dropped off the radar. It was gone for about 5-10 minutes and then instantly reappeared at 80,000 feet, stationary. The next sweep of the radar, it was 200 miles away, stationary. It hovered there for about 10 minutes and redid the whole cycle twice more. When I found out what you normally do when you see a UFO, I was told that you notify NORAD, you don't necessarily write anything down, you don't write anything down, and you keep it to yourself. It's a need-to-know basis only. And NORAD one night called me about later in the year to let me know as a heads up that there was a UFO coming up the California coastline. I asked them what I should do about this. They said, nothing, don't write it down, it's just a heads up. And then late 1972, while stationed at the 753rd Radar Squadron in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, I received a couple panicky calls from police officers who were chasing 3 UFOs from Mackinac Bridge up I-75. So I immediately checked the radar, confirmed that they were there, called NORAD, and they were concerned because they had 2 inbound B-52s going to Kinslow Air Force Base. So they diverted them because they didn't want any proximity to the 2. And that night I answered many calls from the police department, sheriff's department and stuff. And my standard response was that there was nothing on radar. And I will testify to this under oath to a congressional hearing.
Good morning. My name is Enrique Colbeck. I am a air traffic controller. I'm sorry for my English. I'm so scared. I'm not accustomed to talk in front of a lot of people. I'm here because I'm being a witness in an involuntary way on my work. I work in Mexico City as radar controller and the International Airport of Mexico. And I'm going to give an example about this sightings that we have in Mexico for several years, and this issue happens a lot of times in my country, unfortunately. For example, March 4, 1992, we detect 15 objects west side of the Toluca airport, that is very close of our international airport at 50 miles, more or less. Then July 28 of 1994, we have almost a collision or something that we can name in that way with an international flight, domestic flight of Aeromexico 129, commanded by the pilot Raimundo Cervantes Ruano, that has a trash or something about in his main landing gear in the right leg. That's occurred tonight at 10:30, more or less. Then in the next week, the same year, in the same moment, the Aeromexico Flight 904 has another almost collision that was reported for the pilot Corso, the Capitan Corso, at 11:30 in the morning, and we detect that object on a radar. Suddenly, just for a moment. Then in the next week, we have a lot of sightings reported by the pilots that give us information about the weird traffic or something, brighting lights and different times, and we detect some of them in that week. But in September 15 of 1994, we have a detection about 5 hours, more or less, on a radar and a new equipment that we believe that that equipment was working in not a good way, because it's not human that you have detection by 5 hours of the same object and apparently without movement. Well, we concur with the technical persons of radar in our country that the radar system was working well, and was very exciting, and we surprised when at the next day we received information about a periodist named Jaime Maussan that is studied these cases in Mexico, about that a sighting from a lot of people in the Metepec city. There is another point located southeast of the Toluca airport, about a sighting of the big flying saucer, apparently 50 meters of diameter, then for a lot of people, and that led the trash is something in the ground. Well, next November 24 of 1994, we have on service officially our new radar system, and after that moment we have information very exactly about of these sightings at the same time with the pilots and detections. That's why I'm here, because we consider in my country that this is very dangerous. We have a lot of more cases, but I don't want to use more time in this. But it's very important that the people on the world knows these events and consider that could be very dangerous for aeronautical situation, especially in my country. I don't know why in my country that's occur frequently, but the point is that happens, and we consider dangerous, and we had only unfortunately one trash, but we don't want to have another more. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry for my English.
My name is Graham Bethune. I'm a retired Navy commander, pilot, had a top secret clearance. 50 years ago, February the 10th, 1951, I was flying from Keflavik, Iceland to Argentia, Newfoundland. It was at night, it was dark. About 300 miles outside of Argentia, I saw a glow on the water, like approaching the city at night. As we approached this glow, it turned to a monstrous circle of white lights on the water. We watched this for a while, the lights went out, there was nothing on the water. Next thing we saw was a yellow halo, small, much smaller than whatever it was launched from, and that was 15 miles away, up to our altitude. Because of the trajectory, I disengaged the autopilot, shoved the nose over to try to go under this thing. And at that time, I heard a noise underneath. I thought maybe it hit us. It was actually some of the crew members ducking, and they collided, and a couple of them were injured. Then it appeared over to the right and moved out slowly and flew with us. It was still not at our altitude, but we could see the shape of it. It had a dome. We could see the coronal discharge. I went back aft, let the other pilot, Al Jones, take my seat to see what the passenger's reaction was. Came back to the cockpit, told him not to report anything simply because what the psychiatrist had said to me, maybe they would lock us up. So basically, the instruments in the cockpit, we had 4 or 5 failures. In the area of magnetic compass, the electromagnetic effect, an area of directional finders, and this type of thing. The craft was tracked by radar in excess of 1,800 miles an hour. It never did get to our altitude. We had 31 passengers, plus the psychiatrist and the crew members that all cited this at different areas. When we landed at Argentia, Newfoundland, we were interrogated by the Air Force, an excellent interrogation, Captain Paulson. When we landed at the Naval Air Test Center here at Patuxent River, we were required by Navy intelligence to make out individual reports. Out of the National Archives, I have the 18-page official Navy and Air Force report. I've made up a report to straighten out all the truth. There's a stack of books out there this high that have written all of this up. So the truth is here. I will testify under oath before Congress that everything that I have said is true.
My name is Dan Willis. I was in the United States Navy. I held a top secret crypto level 14 extra sensitive material handling security clearance. I worked in the code room at the Naval Communication Station in San Francisco. In 1969, I received a priority message from a ship near Alaska that was classified as secret. The ship reported merging out of the ocean near Port Bow, a brightly glowing reddish-orange elliptical object, approximately 70 feet in diameter, emerged out of the water, shot into space, traveling at about 7,000 miles per hour. This was tracked on ship's radar and substantiated. Years later, I worked at the Naval Electronic Engineering Center in San Diego for 13 years. The co-worker who I worked with worked at the NORAD facility. When he first started working at the facility, he noticed objects going on the screens that track everything out in space and in the air, objects going off the scale, doing right-angle turns. When he inquired, his older supervisor advised him that, quote, it was just a visit from one of our little friends. I thought this was a little unusual. These statements are true. I'm willing to testify under oath before Congress. Thank you.
My name is Don Phillips. I was in the United States Air Force and had worked with certain intelligence agencies of the United States government. Prior to my Air Force, prior to joining the Air Force, I worked for the famous Lockheed Skunk Works. And I was working for them when I was attending college, and I worked for them in the capacity as a design engineer. It was one of my proudest moments of my life to work with a man by the name of Kelly Johnson. A lot of you might be familiar with that. It turns out that the models of aircraft that we were building, as you know, were all classified, were in the deep black, and that I came in on the end of the U-2 project. My main project was known later as the SR-71. The SR-71 had a predecessor. It had a special model built for the CIA, and that those models were one passenger, one pilot special aircraft in order to get from one place to another very, very quickly. Now these SR-71s, as we know them, the Blackbird, are the type of aircraft that are still classified in a sense as far as the altitude that it flies at and also the speed records that it holds. I'm very proud to say that this aircraft played a big part in helping to end the Cold War. The aircraft, the predecessor aircraft, there's strong evidence to suggest that perhaps these aircraft had a different role once in the air. Each pilot, and I know a few of them, each pilot had an assignment before they took off, okay? They learned about the assignment immediately prior to takeoff, and there's strong evidence to suggest that there was a dual role in that they were monitoring some type of traffic to and from planet Earth. This can be verified at a later point. This was, I'll jump into my military experience. My first field assignment for the United States Air Force was at Las Vegas Air Force Station. And that was my first experience with Las Vegas, and I couldn't understand why people were being so excited about going to a place such as this, but I soon found out about a year later. Nellis Air Force Base is located there. Nellis is a major training center for different types of special aircraft and fighter aircraft, one of the premier training sites for pilots all around the world. However, when I learned that my assignment was at a radar site 50 miles out of town, up near Mount Charleston, I had no idea where I'd be, so finally in the daylight I was able to find the location and reported in 1965 for duty. In 1966, early in the morning, about 1 to 2 a.m., I was staying there on base, and our barracks were at about 8,000 feet. I heard a lot of commotion. You know, at that altitude, sound carries tremendously. And I thought, well, it's early in the morning, it's summertime, and there is it's very warm, and maybe I should get up and take a look. I didn't really want to, but I got up and took a look, walked up to the main road up near my office, which was the commander's office. I was on the commander's staff, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Evans. And I was saying, who's making all this noise? Who's making all this noise at this time of the morning? So when I got within about 50 yards of the 4 or 5 people that were standing there, one being the chief of security, they were looking up in the air, and I said, gee, their heads are all looking at the same direction. Well, I looked up to the west, northwest, and to my amazement, there were lights flashing around the sky, moving at anywhere from what seemed like 2,400 to about 3,800 miles per hour. Now, the fact that we're taking an estimate from a distance, you know, we figured, well, this is quite something. However, we continued to watch these darting lights go across the sky and stop, absolutely stop, come to a dead stop and reverse in an acute angle their direction, and then proceed on in they were traveling so fast that you could almost see a pattern left by, if you are computer people, when you move a mouse real quick across the screen, you see a little bit of a tail. Well, that's exactly the way these 6 or 7 craft worked. After 5 minutes of watching these things, they all seemed to group up to the west, northwest, okay? They started to come in on a circle. But what I would like to point out is that where they were putting on their display in the north-northwest sky, just directly east of that is what is known as Area 51. Area 51 is a AEC name, okay? Atomic Energy Commission. That was the old name for Atomic Energy Commission. We knew it as the Groom Lake Flight Test Facility in the Air Force. And it was where we tested our aircraft after we got the prototype made from the Skunk Works. So here are these, let's get back to the circle in the sky. What they did was coalesce and started rotating in a circle, and then they disappeared. Well, I thought, gee, this is something that we have to keep quiet, and that was verified by the Chief of Security. But we waited there and talked it over for a little bit, and it seemed like, I think it was an hour. Then came the radar people from the scopes, which were at 10,000 plus feet, came down for their dinner at 2 o'clock in the morning. And the first person off the bus was a good friend of mine, Anthony Kesar. He said, he was white as a sheet, and he says, did you see that? Yeah, we all said, yeah, it was a nice display. What a show. He says, we documented them on radar. And he says, we didn't give them clearance. The standing order was let them fly through the radar beam. He says, we documented 6 to 7 UFOs. Now, we don't know who was guiding those, but they were certainly intelligent. And we don't know where they landed because they coalesced and disappeared. So I will say at this point, to keep it short, that I will testify under oath as to what I say is true, and I will do so before Congress. Thank you.
My name is Robert Solis. Contrary to what it says on the card, I was not a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. I was in the Air Force active duty after I graduated from the Air Force Academy in 1964 until 1971 and separated as a captain. In March of 1967, I was stationed at Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana, as a missile launch officer, Minuteman missiles. On an early morning of March 16th, 1967, I got a call from my security guard, primary security guard upstairs. We had about 6, as I recall, flight security airmen upstairs. I was downstairs 60 feet underground in a capsule, monitoring and controlling 10 nuclear-tipped Minuteman missiles. I got a call that morning that they were seeing strange lights flying in the sky. I disregarded that call. Told them to call me when something more significant happened. I got another call subsequent to that call, and this time it was a more intense tone in the guard's voice. It was very clearly very frightened. He said there was a bright, glowing red object hovering outside the front gate. It was oval-shaped. He had all the other guards out there with their weapons drawn. Right after that call, I woke up my commander, who was on a rest period, Fred Mywald, a retired colonel now, and told him about the phone calls. As I was telling him about the phone calls, my weapons started going down, one after the other. They went into a no-go condition, what we call a no-go condition. They were unlaunchable. We lost somewhere between 6 and 8 weapons that morning within minutes of having received that second phone call of a UFO hovering outside the front gate. Again that morning, after reporting it to the command post, we were informed that a very similar incident happened at Echo Flight. I was at Oscar Flight. They lost all 10 of their weapons under similar circumstances, very similar circumstances, where UFOs were sighted over the launch facilities. They had maintenance crews and security crews out there that had spent the night, and they were reporting UFOs over those sites. And the commander of that flight was Eric Carlson. He also separated as a captain, and the deputy commander was Walt Fiegel, retired as a lieutenant colonel. We have those witnesses that I just mentioned, the names I just mentioned have spoken of this event before, and they will back up this story. We also have documentation that I received through FOA requests from the Air Force outlining the Echo flight incident and including in that documentation a reference to UFOs. We have telexes covering this incident, and in one telex it says the fact that no apparent reason for the loss of 10 missiles can be readily identified is cause for grave concern to this headquarters. This was from SAC headquarters. So we've got those telexes. I've got about 12 witnesses that'll verify parts of this story, including of a man who investigated the incident afterwards for the Air Force, and you'll hear a little bit more about that from the next witness. And also another guard that witnessed a UFO in that same time period, and another officer who retired a full colonel who had other reports of UFOs. Ancillary to that, excuse me, I've got the complete report on a Minot, North Dakota incident. That was Minot Air Force Base, North Dakota, which happened in August of 1966. Very similar, UFOs sighted over missile silos, and also a UFO incident that was investigated by the Air Force immediately after our incident within a week. I'm willing to testify to the truth of all these matters that I've spoken about this in front of Congress under oath. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dwayne Arneson. I served 26 years as a communication electronics officer in the U.S. Air Force, all over the world, including Vietnam. I was lucky to be selected to be commander of 3 different units in the Air Force. I held a top secret SCI TK clearance, and for those who don't know, it is slightly above top secret. I retired in 1986 as a colonel at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. I would like to relate about 3 different experiences, if you will, that relate to UFOs. As a young lieutenant over in Germany, Ramstein Air Base, Germany, back in the early 60s, I was in charge of the cryptographic center. I had a top secret crypto clearance at that time, and I can clearly recall seeing a message that went through my crypto center which said that a UFO had crashed on the island of Spitsbergen, Norway, and the team of scientists were coming to investigate it. Going forward to the 1967 timeframe, I was assigned to the 28th Air Division at Great Falls, Montana, and I was the officer in charge of the communications center there. Also, I was a top secret control officer for the division. I had a crypto account. I was an account custodian, and I also passed out nuclear launch authenticators. During that time, I can recall seeing a message come through that communications center which said, basically what Bob just got through talking about, is that a UFO was seen near the missile silos and the missiles were deactivated. Coincidentally, the person that Boeing sent to investigate the particular missile conditions, if you will, what made them shut down, was my first manager at Boeing, Mr. Bob Kaminsky, who has since passed away. And I can recall him on different occasions. He lived close to me in Auburn, Washington. That's where I'm from. And he said, Arnie, he says, those missiles were perfectly clean. That was the result. So the last incident concerned when I was as a commander of the unit in Great Falls, or in Caswell Air Force Station, Maine, I had contacts with the security police at Loring Air Force Base, and they told about UFOs that were seen near the nuclear weapon storage areas on Loring Air Force Base. And I'd be glad to testify to Congress that this is absolutely the truth. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Harlan Bentley. During 1957 and 1959, I was a PFC in the United States Army, stationed north of Washington, D.C. on the Nike Ajax missile base close to Albany, Maryland. In May, this month of 1958, about 6 a.m., I heard a noise outside that sounded like a pulsating transformer. I sat up in my bunk, I looked out the window, I saw a craft heading for the ground and crashed. Pieces broke off of that craft, immediately took off again. So there's a lot more to that story, but I've got to speed this up. Now, the next night, I was on radar duty. I get a call from the Gaithersburg missile base. He says, hey, I got 12 to 15 UFOs outside, 50 to 100 feet above me. So I asked him, I said, what does it sound like? He took his head mic off, held it out the van window, and said, here. And the same sound I heard the previous morning, except a lot more of them. So my radar was on standby, so I immediately turned it on and got the blip just outside of the ground clutter. I marked it on my radar screen. And then for a few minutes later, all of a sudden they took off. As they took off, the sweep came around, hit the blip. The second, when it came around, it hit it again. That blip was 2/3 the way off my radar scope. In order to get that far at a constant velocity was 17,000 miles an hour. That was my first incident. 10 years later, by this time I received a Bachelor of Science degree in electrical engineering, and I was working in California. Now, I'm sorry that all I can say is I was somewhere in California working on a classified project that had nothing to do with my experience that I had there. As I was working, and it was like 2 or 3 in the morning, California time, I heard a Houston astronaut communication link, comlink. I didn't pay much attention to it until I heard the word bogey. Of course, my ears picked up immediately. An unidentified flying object of some sort, whether it's a craft, meteorite, or whatever, was on a collision course with that module going to loop around the moon. So basically, I listened for some time, and then I stopped and went back to work. And then I heard, there they go. In the astronaut world, some of you may not know this, there's a term called green turtle. And it used to be, I don't know if it is today or not, but it used to be is you're not allowed to use profanity over the net. And the first person that does that, whoever hears it first and says green turtle, that astronaut's got to buy that man and his entire family a dinner at the most expensive place at Cape Canaveral. Well, to end this real quick, one of them said, damn, they went off, the UFOs took off. He says, damn, that was fast. And somebody yelled, green turtle. And then he said another word, a synonym to crap. And then somebody else yelled, green turtle. And you could see him grit his teeth, because now he had to buy 2 expensive meals. And my particular experience, I will testify before Congress if necessary, and explain exactly what happened. Thank you.
My name is John Maynard. I'm a retired Army. I retired as a Sergeant First Class. For my entire 21 years of service, I held a top secret clearance. Compartmentalized at times to as high as TK, Omni, Crypto, and others. I had access to very, very sensitive documents. My testimony is basically 2-pronged. One, I retired from DIA in 1980. Or when as an administrator you take over an office, you take over everything and you sign for everything. And I signed for well over 2,000 documents. In order to sign and inventory those things, you have to read them. not word for word, but basically I went through every document to make sure that it was complete. It was there as they told me. I turned my charge over to the next person, those same documents were there. So I got quite a good knowledge of what was going on in those documents, and believe me, there are many, many different references to UFOs. There was also NPIC pictures that shows that it would targeted objects that were casing you out. Now, I worked on the SALT 1 and SALT 2 areas for the office that I worked in. So we were taking pictures all the time for verification of nuclear disarmament. And there were some objects in those pictures that didn't belong there. The second prong to this whole thing is that a lot of people talk about conspiracies over a shadow government. I'm willing to testify before Congress that these black operations do exist. I nearly became part of it. But I saw the light, I think. Or was it? And I got out. And that's it. We have to disclose what we know. And I am willing to testify before Congress under oath, or before any other organization, that what I witnessed was true.
Good morning. My name is Carl Wolf, and I was a precision electronics photographic repairman with a top secret crypto clearance in the United States Air Force. I was stationed at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. In 1965, in mid-1965, I was loaned to the Lunar Orbiter project at NASA on Langley Field. Dr. Colley was in charge of that project. They had problems with a piece of electronic equipment that was bottlenecking their production of photographs. I went to the facility, and when I walked into the facility, there were scientists from all over the world. I was stunned, actually, to see people at a NASA project from all over the world. It didn't make any sense to me initially. I was taken into the laboratory where the equipment was malfunctioning. I couldn't repair it in the dark. I asked to have it removed. A airman second class was in the dark room at that time. I was also an airman second class. I was interested in how the whole process functioned, how the data got from the lunar orbiter to the laboratory. I asked the young man if he'd describe the process to me. He did. About 30 minutes into the process, he said to me, in a very distressed way, by the way, we've discovered a base on the backside of the moon. And then he proceeded to put photographs down in front of me, and clearly in these photographs were structures, mushroom-shaped buildings, spherical buildings, and towers. And at that point, I was very concerned because I knew we were working on compartmentalized security. He had breached security, and I was actually frightened at that moment. And I did not question him any further. And a few moments later, someone did come into the room. I worked there for 3 more days, and I remember going home and naively thinking, I can't wait to hear about this on the evening news. And here it is, more than 30 years later, and I hope we hear about it tonight. And I will testify under oath before Congress that what I'm saying is the truth.
Thank you, Carl. Good morning, everyone. My name is Donna Hare, and I worked at Philco Ford Aerospace from 1967 to 1981. During that time, I was a design illustrator, draftsman. I did the launch slides and landing slides, and also projection plotting boards, lunar maps for NASA. We were a contractor, but most of the time I worked on site, in Building 8. I had the opportunity to do extra work during downtime, which was between missions, and I walked into a photo lab, which was the NASA lab across the hallway. I had a secret clearance, which is not that high, but I was able to go into restricted areas, which this was. At the time, I was talking to one of the techs in there, and he drew my attention to a photograph that a NASA photograph. It had a dot on it. And I said, what is that? Well, he drew my attention to it, and I said, is that a dot on the emulsion? And he said, and he's smiling, and he has his hands crossed, and he said, round dots on the emulsion don't leave round shadows on the ground. And this was an aerial photograph of the Earth, I'm assuming the Earth, because it had pine trees on it, and the shadows of the craft, or whatever it was, were in the same angle as the trees. And by its very nature, UFO, and I wanted to clarify that to a gentleman that was talking to me, means unidentified. So I did not know what this was. But I realized at this point that it's very secret, that it was kept secret, because I asked him, what are you going to do with this piece of information? And he said, we always airbrush these out before we sell them to the public. So they're pesky little creatures appearing on this photograph they wanted to get rid of. After that, I decided I would ask questions to other people that work there. And I found that I had to ask them away from the site and not on site. A guard told me that he was asked to burn some photographs and not to look at them. And there was a guard, another guard guarding him, who was in green fatigues, watching him burn the photographs. And he said he was too tempted. He looked at one, and it was a picture of a UFO, and he was very descriptive. I can go into that later with anyone. He immediately was hit in the head, and he had a big gash in his forehead. He was knocked out, and he's terrified, so he would have to be protected. Another incident, I knew someone in quarantine with the Apollo astronauts. He told me that the Apollo astronauts saw craft on the moon when we landed, and that is what he told me. And he also was afraid. He said that the astronauts are told to keep this quiet. They're not allowed to talk about it. So I do want to let you know that I worked out there for a number of years, and I ran into this. So it's not something everyone knows that works out there for a long time. My boss didn't know about it. Some people that sat right next to me didn't know about it. It's very strange, because I don't know how they can do it, but they can let some people know about it and then others not. I'm willing to testify before Congress that what I'm saying is true, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the press. My name is Larry Warren. 20 years ago, in 1980, I was a security specialist assigned to RAF Bentwaters, Woodbridge, NATO Air Force facilities in Suffolk, East Anglia. I had a secret security clearance. I guarded our backline nuclear weapons that were stored there at the time, without the knowledge of the people of Great Britain. I went through a portion of a 3-night UFO event where objects made incursions over our WSA, fired pencil-thin beams of light into them, and adversely affected the ordnance, possibly. These objects were on the ground on 2 different nights. Potentially, there was another life form seen. This is an unpopular truth. These events were of extreme defense significance to not only Her Majesty's government, but this government as well, and they are still shrouded in secrecy. They are very complex, they are very vast. This is more about a human rights issue than just a UFO issue. 20 years ago, this room would be empty. I see a turn in history. This is history in motion, but unfortunately it's history with a security classification. I would be more than honored to swear under oath that I experienced what I did, I saw what I saw. These events produced not only, after numerous denials by this government, a memo by Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt, our deputy base commander, which reads like science fiction. It also produced, years later, an on-site audio tape he made as these objects performed their feats and did what they did and violated airspace. These events are of extreme defense significance. I hope my brothers in arms that went through these events will be given immunity at some point and be able to join us here. It is an honor to share the stage with all of these people. And I think for all of our children, my son Dennis, God bless you, son, we can change the world. You're heroes for being here also, and I will testify in front of Congress if asked to. God bless. Thank you.
Hi, my name is George Filer III. The reason I'm here is because George Filer V is in the hangar and will be born on Friday. And I'm a retired intelligence officer and flyer with almost 5,000 hours, and I didn't believe in UFOs until London Control called us in the winter of 1962 and asked us, would we chase one? And we said, sure. So we let down from 30,000 feet to 1,000 feet where the UFO was hovering, and we went into a steep dive and actually exceeded the red line of the aircraft. So it's kind of dangerous chasing UFOs. In any case, I was able to get the UFO on the aircraft radar at about 40 miles, and we could see a light out in the distance, and as we closed, we kept on picking up this radar return. The point I'm mentioning that the radar return was very distinct and solid, indicating it was some kind of a metallic object. We got about a mile from the UFO, and it kind of lit up in the sky and went off into space, very similar to what the shuttle looks like when it takes off. Later on, I was working in intelligence in Vietnam. I briefed General Brown about UFOs when I was in 21st Air Force, in McGuire Air Force Base. Briefed General Glau about a UFO over Tehran, Iran in 1976. That two F-4s from the Iranian Air Force had taken off and tried to intercept the UFO. And when they turned on their fire control systems, they immediately went on. All the electrical systems went out. The planes had to return to base. This was particularly significant because it was also picked up on satellites. In 1978, on January 18th, I was going into the base. Every morning I did the briefing to the general staff, and I noticed that there are some lights off in the distance at the end of the runway there. And when I got into the command post, the senior master sergeant in charge said that there had been UFOs in the pattern all night. They're on radar. The tower had seen them. They gotten aircraft reports and so on. And that one had landed or crashed at Fort Dix. Fort Dix and McGuire are right together. And this is kind of like the Roswell of the East. But in any case, an alien had come off the craft and had been shot by a military policeman, and apparently was wounded and was heading for McGuire. So for whatever reason, the aliens liked the Air Force better than the Army, perhaps because they're shooting at them. But in any case, our security police went out there and found him on the end of the runway dead. And they asked me to brief the general staff, General Tom Sadler, and at the 8 o'clock stand-up briefing. And I said, I don't think I want to do this. You know, the general doesn't have a good sense of humor, and I'm not sure I believe this. So I did some checking, called the 438th Command Post, and everybody had pretty much the same story. And at 8 o'clock that morning, just before I went on, was going to brief this, and I was very worried about it. They said, don't brief it, that it's too hot, so to speak. That's pretty much my story, and I'm prepared to tell the story in front of Congress, and it is the truth. Now, because of this, I've stayed interested in UFOs, and I'm the Eastern Director of the Mutual UFO Network. And between the National Reporting Center and Peter Davenport and the MUFON, we get 100 reports a week on average of people from all over the United States that see these things regularly. And if you start checking, they're out there and they're low, and people are seeing them all the time. And these are highly qualified people, all of whom essentially give us the reports by email. Thank you.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Clifford Stone. I was a Sergeant First Class, United States Army. I had a secret clearance with nuclear surety. I could get the clearance that I needed to do whatever it was that was necessary for me to do at the time on special operations when I was called in on those. What I'm referring to here is that I was involved in situations where we actually did recoveries of crashed saucers, for lack of a better term, debris thereof. There were bodies that were involved with some of these crashes, also some were alive. While we were doing all this, we were telling the American public there was nothing to it. We were telling the world there was nothing to it. I'd like to go into detail on some of the cases, about the nuts and bolts cases right here, but I will be available if you have any questions concerning my involvement in this. You can talk to Dr. Greer to arrange for me to get to talk to you. But the whole situation is, we've set back, we've told the American people that there's no such thing as UFOs. I've been involved where we have recovered these objects. We know them to be of extraterrestrials. In 1969, I had an event that happened to me while I was stationed at Fort Lee, Virginia. We went to Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania. That would be my first exposure to any time that we would be recovering an unidentified flying object. When we went there, we already had people that was already in the facility. We were a backup team, which was supposed to be NBC because there was supposed to be some nuclear materials that was on board this craft. Later on, most people involved were to be told that there was nothing on board it. It was nothing more than just a crash of one of our aircraft. I know better because I was one of the people that approached it with a Geiger counter to get surface readings. I was the first person to go ahead and see that there were bodies on it. That would be the first of approximately 12 events. UFO crashes are not events that take place every day. They're rare. I know we're not alone in the universe. I know that the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. It's evidence that has been denied to the American people. I stand before you today in my almighty God, and I tell you this. If Congress calls me in and says, will you testify in detail what you know, I stand here today prepared and ready to do just that. Governments must never lie to the people for no reason. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mark McCandlish, and for the last 21 years, I have worked as a conceptual artist for a variety of defense contractors. I've been involved in conceptual artwork of the production thereof for Rockwell on the X-30 program, and also on the HISTEP program. That's spelled HYSTP, means Hypersonic Testbed Program. During the course of my career, I've twice had a secret security clearance. In 1967, while my father was stationed at Westover Air Force Base, the headquarters for 8th Air Force Strategic Air Command, I witnessed and watched through a telescope a UFO which hovered over a nuclear weapons storage facility for approximately 10 minutes and then departed with an acceleration approaching a bullet leaving a rifle barrel. In 1988, in November, a college buddy of mine, an associate by the name of Brad Sorensen, informed me that he had personally witnessed 3 flying saucers at a very large hangar at Norton Air Force Base during the course of an air show that was held on Saturday, November 12, 1988. I subsequently called my congressman from that district. I called his office. This was Congressman George E. Brown, Jr., who at the time was the chairman of the Congressional Committee on Space Science and Advanced Technology. I naturally assumed that since this presentation that Brad talked about was for top military brass and certain congressional individuals, that his office must have coordinated this with the local Air Force Office of Public Affairs. A male staff member in Congressman Brown's office not only confirmed the exhibit, but the fact that there were 3 discs at that exhibit. These discs were hovering off the floor without any visible means of support. They were referred to as alien reproduction vehicles, also nicknamed the flux liner because they used high voltage electricity. Let's see, to keep things short, this is a diagram that I made based on a sketch that Brad Sorensen did for me in rough form shortly after he had his sighting and subsequently cleaned that drawing up and made it much more accurate. And that's the drawing that Dr. Greer is holding there now. Later on, I obtained photographs that were taken in 1967 by a military pilot, Harvey Williams, flying a C-47 for the Air Force at 12,000 feet, approximately 25 miles southwest of Provo, Utah. This particular vehicle matches the so-called ARV in all proportions and respects in terms of the detail of the shape of the craft. And this was photographed, as I say, in June or July of June of 1967. I later spoke to a gentleman by the name of Kent Sellen that I met at an air show at Edwards Air Force Base in 1992, the first unveiling publicly of the B-2 bomber. He indicated to me that in 1973, when he was a crew chief working on experimental aircraft at Edwards Air Force Base, that he had unintentionally wandered into an area where there was a classified aircraft, namely the ARV. He described it in detail, and he added other details to the account concerning the configuration and the operation of the vehicle that Brad Sorensen was not aware of. Subsequently, Brad Sorensen met with the famous aeronautical designer Burt Rutan, gave him a copy of this blueprint which you've just been shown. Mr. Rutan felt that it was a joke and put it on his wall as kind of a joke. And a third party confirmed for me later that a Colonel Ray Walsh from Edwards Air Force Base was visiting Mr. Rutan, saw this blueprint on the wall and registered quite a degree of shock and anger, wanted to know where the hell he got this blueprint, because there was in fact such a craft at that time, approximately 1994, 95, in a hangar at Edwards Air Force Base, North Base Complex at that time. Subsequently, I've done a lot of research on this product, this vehicle. I've come across a number of declassified documents that show that the Air Force, as early as 1960, was wind tunnel testing flying saucer shapes up to Mach 20. And I also have declassified NASA documents that show similar shapes. In fact, this is the document here that more or less details the wind tunnel testing up to Mach 20. This is the NASA document right here that was declassified, and it shows a variety of spherical and lenticular shapes that were flight tested up to, or I should say wind tunnel tested up to Mach 6. I subsequently obtained a copy of an interoffice memo from Hercules Aerospace that describes a particular type of science involving something called zero-point energy and scalar waves. According to Brad Sorensen, this is the basis of the technology for these anti-gravity propulsion systems. This particular document here describes 6 different meetings involving the Defense Intelligence Agency and cooperative efforts with the Russian scientific community in investigating this, what is called the fundamental enabling technology that was originally discovered apparently by Nikola Tesla in the early 1900s. Anyway, I could provide you much more detail at a later time, and I am prepared to testify in detail concerning these events and their truthfulness before Congress. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Daniel Sheehan. I'm an attorney and serving as general counsel to the Disclosure Project. I'm a 1967 graduate of Harvard College in American Government Studies and Constitutional Law, and a graduate of Harvard Law School. And I served as general counsel and one of the co-counsel for the New York Times in the Pentagon Papers case, and was involved in briefing and arguing the case in front of the United States Supreme Court, giving permission to the New York Times to publish the classified documents, the 47 volumes of the Pentagon Papers. Subsequent to that time, I served as special counsel to the office of F. Lee Bailey as one of the trial counsels when we represented James McCord in the Watergate burglary. and got Mr. McCord to write the letter to Judge Sirica to reveal the Watergate burglars' relationship to the plumbers unit in the White House at that time. Subsequent to my service in that case, I went back to Harvard to the Divinity School to study Judeo-Christian social ethics and public policy. Did my master's work and PhD work there, and became general counsel for the United States Jesuit headquarters in Washington, D.C., assigned to the National Social Ministries Office and their public policy office. It was there in 1977 that I was contacted by Ms. Marcia Smith, who was the director of the Science and Technology Division of the Congressional Research Service. She asked to meet with me, and I met with her, and she informed me that President Carter, upon taking office in January of 1977, held a meeting with then the Director of Central Intelligence, who was George Bush Sr., and demanded that the Director of Central Intelligence turn over to the President the classified information about unidentified flying objects and the information that was in the possession of the United States intelligence community concerning the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence. This information was refused to the President of the United States by the Director of Central Intelligence, George Bush Sr. The Director insisted that the President, in order to have access to this information, needed to have clearance to contact the Congressional Research Service, to contact the United States House of Representatives Science and Technology Division, to have them undertake a process to declassify this information, because the DCI suspected that the President was preparing to reveal this information to the American public. The Congressional Research Service Science and Technology Division, under the directorship of Marcia Smith, was contacted by the House Science and Technology Committee and instructed to undertake a major investigation of the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence and the relationship of the UFO phenomenon to this. I was contacted by Ms. Smith and asked, in my capacity as General Counsel to the United States Jesuit Headquarters, National Social Ministry Office, to see if we could obtain access to the Vatican Library, to obtain the information that the Vatican had with regard to extraterrestrial intelligence and the phenomenon of the UFOs. I pursued that with the permission of Father William J. Davis, the director of the National Office, and we were refused access as the United States Jesuit Order to the information in the possession of the Vatican Library. When I reported this to Ms. Smith, she then later subsequently asked me to participate in a project which I can go into some detail during the question and answer period or later to individuals, pursuant to which I was given access to, as a special consultant to the United States Library of Congress Congressional Research Service, to the classified portions of the Blue Book project of the Air Force. At that point, it was in 1977, approximately May of 1977, I went to the Madison building of the United States Library of Congress. There was no one in the building at that time. It was brand new. I was directed to a basement office where there were two guards at the door and a third sitting at the table who took my identification, verified that I'd been designated as a special consultant to the Congressional Research Service of the United States Library of Congress, and was admitted to the room. I thereupon found photographs, some dozen photographs, of what is unquestionably an unidentified flying object on the ground that had crashed and plowed a furrow in a field of snow, and it was embedded in an embankment. There were United States Air Force personnel surrounding this craft, taking photographs of the craft. And one of the photographs, I could see that there were some symbols on the side of the craft. And so I proceeded through the photographs and found a close-up photograph of these symbols. I'd been instructed that I was to take no notes and had to leave my briefcase and all my identification outside of this room, but I had brought with me a yellow pad. And so what I did is I opened up the yellow pad and refocused the overhead camera onto the same size as the cardboard backing of the yellow pad, and I physically traced the copies of the symbols on the side of this craft, closed the yellow pad back, put the microfiche back into the canister, reclosed the box that I had, and I said, it is time for me to leave. And I took this and proceeded to leave the office, at which point the security guard stopped me, and one of them said, what is that you have there, Mr. Sheehan? At which point I handed the yellow pad to him, and he flipped through all the yellow pages and never found the copy that I had. And so I took that with me and brought it to the United States Jesuit headquarters, had a meeting with the staff, with Father William J. Davis, reported this to them, was authorized at that time by the United States Jesuit headquarters to make a report to the National Council of Churches and to request that the entire 54 major religious denominations of our country undertake a major study of extraterrestrial intelligence, which they declined to do. I was subsequently asked to deliver a 3-hour closed-door seminar to the top 50 scientists of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory of SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, which I did do in 1977. I'm more than happy to testify under oath to these details to the United States Congress, and would be happy to meet with any members of the press at that time. You may recall I also served as chief counsel to the Karen Silkwood case, in which we obtained the rulings in the Karen Silkwood case. I also served as chief counsel in the Iran-Contra case. It was the first one to testify before the United States Congress to the existence of the off-the-shelf enterprise of Richard Secord and Albert Hakim. I'll be more than happy to share the details of what I believe to be the relationship between this off-the-shelf enterprise and the secret government, which is concealing this information from the American public. And I am happy and proud to serve as general counsel to the Disclosure Project. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Carol Rosen. In 1974, after being a 6th grade school teacher, I was introduced to the late Dr. Wernher von Braun, in the U.S., the father of rocketry. In my first meeting with him, during that first 3.5 hours, he said to me, Carol, you will stop the weaponization of space. And I said, teachers don't stop until June. He said, no, you have to understand, this is February. And we have to prevent the weaponization of space because there is a lie being told to everyone that the weaponization of space is now first being based upon the evil empire, the Russians. There are many enemies, he said, against whom we're going to build this space-based weapon system. The first of whom was the Russians, which was existing at that time. Then there would be terrorists. Then there would be third world countries. Now we call them rogue nations or nations of concern. Then there would be asteroids. And then he would repeat to me over and over, and the last card would be the extraterrestrial threat. Well, at the time, I kind of laughed when he said asteroids, and when he said extraterrestrials, I knew I wasn't going to deal with that subject. And now we hear on the news just today, this week, that they've slid in another enemy. Only this time we're going to protect our satellites. In other words, we have to have some reason to spend these trillions, to waste these dollars on a space-based weapon system, and they're all lies. This is a system, he told me, that would never protect anyone. Even back then, he talked about suitcase bombs. He talked about chemical, viral, bacterial, biological warfare, that these space-based weapons would never protect us against. And then he told me that, in fact, if you travel around the world, which I did after he died in 1977, I met with people in over 100 countries who were friends. They didn't want to build space-based weapons. I became a space and missile defense consultant, and I worked with people around the world. I became an advisor to the People's Republic of China. They don't want to build a space-based weapon system, and he told me back then that they didn't. He said, go to Russia. They're considered to be the enemy. I got on a plane by myself. When I got to Russia, I had a list of people that I had read out of the newspaper. Chernenko was in office then. He was the only one I didn't get a chance to meet. They introduced me to everyone when I got there. And when I got back, I said, oh my Lord, this man is telling the truth. There is no threat, And I've been waiting until this day for 27 years, and I'm expecting the spin to happen, because he also explained to me that as a military strategist, as a person who worked on the MX missile, which I did later, he said, you will find that there is going to be a spin to find some enemy against whom we have to build space-based weapons. And now we should expect the spin, because he said part of the formula for the intelligence community is if they might have a weapon, then we have to consider that they do have these weapons. So now they do have these weapons, so now we have to build these weapon systems. And that's the formula, except that it's all based on a lie. And we have witnesses here today that have shown you that these extraterrestrial beings, that these craft that have come here are now not UFOs, they're identified flying objects. And we know that they have beings in them. And we have witnesses here who have told you that they can shut down our missile silos. They can stop a rocket going into space that's a test. We have witnesses here who have worked in the classified departments, who have the courage to come forward here to support what Wernher von Braun told me back in 1974 to 77. And I will testify before the Congress that when I founded the Institute for Security and Cooperation in Outer Space, which I shut down a few years ago because I didn't believe we had a chance with this huge, integrated around the world, complex weapon system, that we had any chance at all of transforming that war industry into a space industry that could provide benefits, like Dr. Greer has said, of global warming. We can end that situation of that problem. We can end the energy crisis. We can build now non-polluting technologies. Wernher von Braun used to tell me that we could have cars back then that drove around off the ground. He described this to me on beams so that we have no pollution on this planet. And we can solve the problems of the people that are urgent and potential, and the other animals and the other cultures on Earth and in space. And we can end the arms race without dislocating the industry jobs, without disrupting the economy, by transforming, Wernher von Braun told me, the war industry into a global cooperative space industry that will provide, he said, finally, more jobs and profits on this planet than during any hot or cold wartime, more products and services that can be applied directly to solving the problems of this planet. And we can have a whole planet now that lives in peace on Earth, with all the cultures on Earth and with all the extraterrestrial cultures in space. And these are words that Wernher von Braun told me in 1974, and I will testify before the Congress under oath about everything I have said and more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank each of the witnesses and for your patience. We're running about 50 minutes late, and I do apologize for that. I want to emphasize that all of these witnesses each could speak for probably anywhere from 2 to 5 hours about what they have witnessed. We were trying to give you a snapshot. We have another 400 of these witnesses. I have carried this burden for 8 years. I'm now giving it to you, the American people and the people of the world, to take it forward. What I'd like to do now is open the audience for questions from the media. You may address them to me or to an individual witness as you deem appropriate. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Thank you, everybody, for chiming in and paying attention there. I appreciate that. So the reason why I played so much of that clip is because, number one, most people have never seen it. I watched that live in 2001, almost to the day. I watched it live. It was a live event, came on CNN, and Dr. Stephen Greer, 25 years ago, had those brave, courageous souls. At that time, back then, I don't know if you can imagine how difficult it could have been to get up in front of that many people, that many cameras, streaming live, and pledging to testify before Congress about the topics that now today would be a common conversation, but at that time, taboo. And your life would be put in danger at that time. So those people came forward at a time where it was really, really dangerous to come forward and make those statements and then pledge to testify before Congress, knowing good and well that Congress and the government and everyone else had been suppressing and oppressing and hiding this information. Okay? So it was an extensive clip, but I thought it was necessary because I really don't think that many people understand or could understand the depth of what they accomplished so many years ago. And then now today in 2026, we get these images from the government that are completely ambiguous and completely vague, out of focus. They literally could be anything. And they say they've released the UFO files. And 25 years ago, we have those courageous souls, people who had the codes to arm nukes, people who consulted on nuclear silos and weaponry and advanced space weapon systems, people who were nuclear flight security specialists. I mean, come on. These are the hardest jobs to get in the world. And these people stood up 25 years ago. And they took advantage of that platform and they spoke their truth. And they showed evidence. They showed imagery. They showed photos. They had documents with them. They answered questions to the press. All questions to the press. And now 25 years later, we have an administration that's teasing us with absolute trash. Absolute trash images, absolute trash video clips. Just to, again, feed little crumbs to keep us distracted. The disclosure has already happened. We just aren't aware of it. It was swept under the rug. On the day that Charlie Kirk was unalived, almost at the exact moment of his unaliving, NASA made a major mainstream TV video press release. And that press release was that they discovered life on Mars, organic life on Mars. At the same time that Charlie Kirk was unalived. And again, that information has been completely overshadowed by the assassination. And probably, I would say, 90% of the world don't even know that they announced that there's life on Mars. In 15 years, I can play that live press conference and people will be completely shocked. Oh my God, you know there was life on Mars. Yes, there's life on Mars. But it aired, ironically, coincidentally, at the same exact time that Charlie Kirk was unalived. Isn't that just a grand coincidence? Interesting. unfortunately, the powers that be are full of games. You know, they are full of games. So what do they call that in New York City on the corners? 3-card Monty, right? They got the cups and they got the little ball and they move the cups around and they got the ball in the cups and they move them around again. And they say, pick which cup is the ball in. This is what they're doing. They're just playing games. They literally are just playing games. They just keep moving that ball. The ball is the disclosure. The ball is the truth. The ball is the knowledge. They keep shuffling it around. Now they're giving us these alien files. Really? A couple of very shady, foggy video clips that are only like 3 to 8 seconds long. Yeah, you know. Meanwhile, where's all the research and the extensive interviews that were done with these people that I just played from 2001, with these official officers, with these official security specialists, with these official scientists and consultants? How come they're not spending countless hours going through that and bringing forth those documents and that information and bringing that to the mainstream? It's been 25 years, and all they've gotten out of it are interviews on podcasts and every now and then an independent documentary. They don't get paid for any of this, by the way, those people. All they got is just risk of life and threats and hatred from their own government that they came out and spoke. So in reality, believing that the government's going to release something spectacular is highly unlikely. What is likely is that people like the brave ones that you just saw are going to be the ones that mostly give the disclosure, right? We appreciate their courage. Exactly, Zakia. Admiral says, Billy, can you tell us more about how the religious heads were supposed to had studied extraterrestrial stuff? Yes, great question, Admiral. Admiral Maitland's in the house from the 4BK Academy. So the Vatican had made a very, very stunning statement, a very stunning press release that went out globally years back. And that statement was that they were looking forward to baptizing the first alien. Now, I don't want you to just think I'm just making that up, so I'm going to pull it up on my screen right now. Let me pull it up and let me share my screen with you. So hang tight 1 second. Because you need to see this with your own eyes, or you won't believe it. Okay? You won't believe it. Now let me come back and share my screen because I want y'all to see exactly what I'm talking about. Vatican Observatory, St. Augustine and baptizing extraterrestrial. The question that has been put to Br. Guy Cosmoglan, Mongo, director of the Vatican Observatory and the chief blogger here at Sacred Space. They're talking about in this article here about the press release that went out. To which Guy answered, only if she asks. They got a laugh, Guy intended, but the guy noted that the stories later ran as if he had made some sort of official Vatican pronouncement about aliens. Well, of course he did. So what happened was he was asked about alien life and he made an official statement. Now I'm going to show you the official statement. I want to show you both sides of the thing. Once this went viral, then they tried to go back and change it up a little bit. Pope Francis said he would definitely baptize aliens if they asked him to. So I'm playing you both sides of the coin. In one, the official statement came out in 2014, in which he said this, and then later, one of the observatory consultants or workers within the Vatican said, "Oh, I think he was just joking." Now, he wasn't joking. He was dead serious. I saw the original release. Pope Francis said he would absolutely baptize an alien from Mars if it showed up at the Vatican and asked for it. Now, that's an interesting statement to make. He said he would baptize an alien from Mars. If they didn't believe in aliens, and if they believed that they were demonic, they wouldn't even make a statement like that. There's no need to joke. When you're dealing with religion, you're dealing with God, you don't joke around like that. I believe that they were serious. It's well known that at the Vatican, they have a lot of stuff inside of the archives there. They even supposedly have bones from non-human entities in the underground 5 Mile archive, along with many other incredible things. Most of the books from the Library of Alexandria burning, the ones that were actually stolen, because the book burning was actually a book heist, made it into the Vatican archives. In about 2.5 weeks, I'm going to the Vatican. And I'm going to hopefully get an opportunity to take a peek at what may be underneath through a special connection that I have. If I'm able to get that done, I'll definitely bring that information back to you. I'll try to get some clips if I can, but I can't guarantee it, but I'm definitely going to try to get some video clips. The religious centers of the world, the major ones, especially the Jesuits, especially the super Jesuit, fully and totally understand that alien life exists. The Vatican built a special type of a telescope located in America, believe it or not. It's in Arizona, I believe. Underneath, they built an underground bunker, and the name of the telescope built by the Vatican is called the Lucifer telescope. That's right. It's called the Lucifer telescope. And this telescope is specifically there and built to look for alien life. And again, let me pull that up. Let me pull that up for you real quick, just so you can see this is real. Let's pull it up. I'm looking for it here now. The Vatican is well aware of alien life. They're well aware of aliens. They are researching and searching and looking for life in space all the time. And they are well aware that we're being visited. Let me share my screen. Popular Science, April 23rd, 2010. Lucifer instrument helps astronomers see through the darkness to the most distant observable objects. Mainstream news. A new instrument with an evil-sounding name is helping scientists see how stars are born. Lucifer, which stands for Deep Breath, Large Binocular Telescope, Near-Infrared Utility with Camera and Integral Field Unit for Extragalactical Research, is a chilled instrument attached to a telescope in Arizona. I was right, Arizona. I haven't talked about this since in a while. And yes, it's named for the devil, whose name itself means the morning star. Just in case you were wondering what the Vatican's up to. Now, the name Lucifer technically doesn't mean evil. Well, Lucifer was the name of one of the fallen angels. And actually, Lucifer was not a fallen angel. Lucifer was a cherubim. And it's said in the text that he was so brilliant and so smart and so beautiful that everywhere he went, music followed him. Super highly intelligent, one of the smartest beings to ever be created by God. And what's interesting to me is that supposedly a being that highly intelligent with an IQ of probably 10,000 is going to follow text written by men to its own demise. I just don't believe that. I definitely believe that Lucifer is most likely the one that's tricking us into believing we know what the hell we're talking about and leading us to our own demise. That's what I really think is happening. We can barely tie our damn shoes on this planet. I mean, hell, we're blowing up countries to get oil so that we can use combustion engines in 2026 when we have access to anti-gravity and free energy and everything else. We have electric cars that have batteries that destroy the environment when they die. The electric car battery is more toxic. It's 10 times more toxic than an actual crankshaft engine, than a regular standard aluminum block. And the batteries can't be recycled. They take a damn hour or whatever to charge. And when the battery goes bad, the replacement battery costs more than the car itself. There's people who have full-time companies where they ride around with gas-powered generators in their vans to charge up broken down electric cars with gas converted into electric. And then you have the rest of us driving around combustion engines in 2026. You have Elon Musk launching chemical-powered rockets into space in 2026. It's embarrassing that the amount of suppression and oppression that we've allowed to happen to ourselves by such a small group of people. They are hoarding all of the knowledge and hoarding all of the technology away from us. And then make us fight over the scrappy oil. It's embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. And people say, well, who are you embarrassed to? I'm embarrassed to the beings in the universe. We are being watched. We're being observed. We're being monitored. And yeah, we have some growing up to do, man. We really gotta, and I might say we, I'm not talking about the government. I'm not talking about the people that are dropping the bombs on other people. I'm talking about the masses of us, the 8 billion, because we're the problem. We keep allowing a small group of men to dominate and control the planet. That's got to come to an end. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Other civilizations are watching and monitoring and just waiting for us to grow up, waiting for us to stop allowing this to occur and happen, waiting for us to stop allowing genocides and assassinations and the abuse of the planet that we live on for resources in a way that don't even need to happen. The manipulation of a financial matrix, the manipulation of consciousness, the manipulation of health, the manipulation of education, the manipulation of rehabilitation. At some point, it's got to come to an end. We're getting close, but man, this last push, this last hard push that we need to get through the end of this age and and shift and move into this 2025 or 2026. Well, we're in the age of Aquarius now. It started in 2025. We need an extra conscious push right now. We need to really, really come together. I'm going to see if I can find this clip that I made 9 years ago. I made a clip 9 years ago with Matthew LaCroix. I wonder if I can quickly find it. I have so much content in this doggone device. I just want to play it for you real quick. I found it. This is 9 years ago. I'm going to upload this really quickly to the server and then download it up there. Because yeah, I really want to, it's uploading now, show you something. As the Hopis prophesied, coming out of this fourth age, there's going to be a lot of calamity, a lot of noise, a lot of growing pains, a lot of darkness going on. In the Emerald Tablets, those calls these people the Dark Brothers, running behind the scenes, and he warns us to beware of the Dark Brothers. And we see that there are Dark Brothers right now running roughshod all over this planet, scraping and scavenging away, creating genocides together. Two brothers right now, as predicted in the Emerald Tablets, in this same exact time frame where it's predicted to happen. These Dark Brothers right now are scouring the earth, mistreating people, genociding people, deceiving people as we speak. And this was to be expected. It was predicted. It was prophesied. And now the most important part of this prophecy is that we need to overcome this situation, is that we need to be able to get through what's going on here and shift and move into a higher vibration globally. And if we don't do that, then we're going to be stuck right where we are. The Hopi prophecy says that some won't make it into the fifth age. It says some won't make it into the fifth age. And the ones that do, we will be responsible for the consequences of our choices. Let me say that again. We will be responsible for the consequences of our choices. That's powerful, because what that's saying is that the principle of cause and effect in the Hermetic principles talks about every conscious thought that you act on is going to have a consequence. If you have a conscious thought and you act on it, you're going to see a consequence. Now, whether it's a good consequence or a bad consequence is irrelevant. The fact is there will be a consequence or a cause and effect. And this cause and effect is exactly what we're facing right now. If we don't straighten out what we're doing, if we don't find a way to organize better and come together and fight to take back control of this planet, the only way to do that, people think it's this big, complicated thing. It's so simple that it's hard, because the easiest way to take back control of this planet is to love thy neighbor. That's it. Love yourself and love thy neighbor. That's simply it. It's not that complicated, because once we do that, that means the divide and conquer tactics don't work on us anymore. That you're blue or you're green or you're red, blue and red, you're black and you're white, or you're Hispanic and Asian, or you're this religion or that religion, or all that dissipates. You're this level of poverty and I'm this level of wealth, and all this foolishness. I got this car and you got that car. All that is nothing but stupidity. What we really need to do is get beyond those divide and conquer tactics, and we need to come together and organize. We need to create our own plandemic. That's what we need to do. Not with a virus that's going to kill people, with a consciousness virus that spreads around the world to re-implement the Christ consciousness on this planet. Once that's done, soldiers don't take orders from people in $10,000 suits anymore to go and unalive their brothers and sisters halfway around the world. They say, no. Police don't brutally beat and kill people in the streets anymore. They say, no. People don't rob and hurt and kill and attack and steal from each other anymore. They say, no. What we do is we come together and we organize as one. And in that way, through a united front, united consciousness, through Christ consciousness, we stop playing their game. We oust them in one simple way. We just stop everything. We just say, no. Imagine on a Monday morning if 100 million people decided, not going to go to work today. Imagine on a Monday morning if 100 million people said, we're not going to pay any interest today. Imagine on a Monday morning if 100 million people said, we're not even going to leave the house. We're not going to buy any of your gas. We don't want any of your blood gas, the gas that has blood on it. We don't want any of it. We've been preparing and stocking up for this planned moment, and we're prepared to sit down for 3 months and do absolutely nothing with your bloody gas, your oil that you stole and that's got the death of the blood of 8-year-old girls on it. We don't want it. That's what I'm talking about doing. That's real power. That's real power. And now we get the attention. The people that are watching us, they go, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I think they're waking up for real now. Not the fake wake up, not the, oh, I'm a spiritual being and I'm meditating. No, the real waking up. Because the real waking up is taking back control of the planet. That's the real waking up. I can meditate for 10 hours. Okay, I get some self-improvement out of it. But I'm talking about global transformation and of control and power, shifting back to the people where it belongs. That's a different kind of power. That's a different kind of woke and awakenedness. That's a different kind of consciousness. Not everybody's ready for that. That's why the Hopi said, not everyone's going to go into the fifth age. It just is what it is. Some people are warriors, like myself, and some people are worriers. Let's see what I talked about 9 years ago. Check this out. Big shift and change coming on this planet. And it's not going to completely eliminate the elites immediately by 2025. However, there's going to start to be a decline as we go around this wheel, this cycle. That power that they've been holding on to so long is going to start to be reduced. And as that happens, they're going to look to run off into the sunset with their, with their golden parachutes and take care of their next generation after generation financially. So there's going to be a lot of crazy things going into 2025. That's going to be like, why is this happening?
Do you think that this has anything to do with the timing of this zodiac change going into Aquarius?
It's a timing thing. This is like, their last temper tantrum, one of their last temper tantrums. I mean, their time and their era is running out, and they know that. Everything operates in cycles. It's a cycle thing. It's cyclical. Just like Thoth talks about in the Emerald Tablets, and many others have talked about in ancient texts and the Kali Yugas and everything else. And they know, for example, even when Amun-Ra wanted to take over kingship early, ahead of his processional time period, he caused a war just to do that. So they're well aware of the time periods and the change of the equinoxes and the age of Aquarius coming in 2025. They're well aware of it. And these are like, their final temper tantrums, just to grab as much as they can, dominate as much as they can. Does that sound like what's happening now? Starting wars at the end of an age to keep the kingship going? Scrapping and scraping and stealing everything? This administration has already illegally stolen $5 billion and continuing to has goals to take much, much more. I saw in an interview the other day, he said, the world is a casino right now for me. I predicted all of this back in 9 years ago, and this phase began in 2025, just as I said. So we're in it. But the good news is we can transform this and we can shift from this into the next age. We're at the very, very beginning, and this is their temper tantrum. They know that their days are numbered. It's coming to an absolute end. It's coming to an end. If you study history, there are no empires that have lasted from the thousands of years ago when you first read about them until today. And there have been empires 10x of the American empire, 10x the European empire, 10x the Asian empire of today. I'm talking about going back thousands of years ago. They had some real empires. Where are they now? They're all gone. No empire can persist forever. What can persist forever is consciousness, and will persist forever. And that's what it's all about. And shout out to Matthew LaCroix. I'm trying to get to the clip, to the thing here. Somebody said, trying to get to that in the live chat. It's moving so fast. There we go. People will tell you. Big love to Billy and Matt. Shout out to Matthew LaCroix, the co-author of the book Epic of Humanity. We wrote that book years ago. That book became a bestseller. It's considered an encyclopedia. The Epic of Humanity. It's on Amazon. Go get that book. It has the most ancient text of any book in one book. And the 4BK Academy. There's a lot of people in the 4BK Academy in the live chat right now. I'm teaching a lot of the mystery school teachings in the Forbidden Knowledge Academy. There are 36 hours of mystery school teachings, along with another 100 hour of teachings and classes inside of my Forbidden Knowledge Academy. I just dropped a link in the live chat again. I'd love for you to come and take a look at the Academy and join the Academy for free for 7 days. And go straight to the mystery school teachings. Download my free ebooks in the Academy. If all you get are some mystery school teachings and free ebooks for no money, you won. But you might stay. If there's anybody in the live chat that's in the part of the 4BK Academy, let them know in the live chat what you think about the Academy. I have built now 1,700 leaders in the Forbidden Knowledge Academy. 1,700 leaders. We don't build followers. We don't develop followers. We don't work with sheep. We only build leaders. The book is The Epic of Humanity. I'm typing it in the live chat. It became a bestseller in 3 categories. The Epic of Humanity by Billy Carson and Matthew LaCroix. The Epic of Humanity. If you can go to Amazon and grab a copy, that'd be great. Please leave a 5-star review and a great comment. So there we go. We have one here. Jamila, it's amazing being in the 4BK Academy. Appreciate that, Jamila. I saw several other people. We've been on for so many hours now. Some of them have probably gone to sleep. Zakia was in here. Anne Marie was in here. So many people. Tony was in here. So many people have been in here tonight from the Forbidden Knowledge Academy. We have Inky join the Academy. Some great knowledge. It's a must for what's happening now. Thank you. Appreciate that, Inky. I just dropped the link in the live chat. I love to see you all over there. I do private off the YouTube mentoring there. Q&As, Emerald Tablet workshops and all of that, all in the Academy, all private. So you can click that link, you can register, and I'll see you in the Academy. Between the live and the recordings, it's just popping. 1,700 leaders, all on the same frequency and vibration, looking to move towards the same goal. Personal sovereignty, personal growth, and global growth of humanity on this planet. Okay? Thank y'all. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. I dropped the link one last time. Thank you for hanging out so many hours tonight. It's been a long one tonight. A total of 2,000 in the live chat across all platforms. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. And I'll see you again soon. Peace.